let's get into the story that I think has some serious legs here. We got a report from Windows Central regarding their Xbox working with Activision to form a new team. Now, that new team, of course, does not have a name. We don't have a name. We do not have a name with that team as of yet. But Gamsley, this is interesting because when you read the article, and of course, I'm going to read it by of course, verbatim. What's interesting about this article is the fact that this team is being made to make development of smaller games quicker. They are going to focus on Blizzard IP, which tells me almost immediately that a StarCraft is in the works. And I say that with confidence. Here's why. If you look in the regions specifically where Xbox has literally no thumbprint whatsoever, well, China is definitely one of them, and so is Japan. Now, both of these particular very large markets have gone away from console use. Yes, consoles still sell, but not like back in the days. Everything is either PC or mobile. More specifically, mobile. Now, the rumor is that Xbox is looking to get into the handheld market, whether that is a hybrid next console that gives you the power when it's docked and gives you a 1440p machine, kind of like the ROG Ally when it's in your hands playing. Either way, if they want people to buy this new hardware where we don't see hardware losses of 42% year over year, they need a game that's going to get the masses in the room, whether that be on mobile, whether that be on PC, or whether that be on actually handheld devices, which are big in both regions. A StarCraft revival is people have been calling for this for years. Now, again, I'm going to do a little bit nerdy. I'm going to get a little nerdy, folks. And please let me know if you think that I'm going overboard here. StarCraft Ghost is one of those games that was like the mythical White Walkers, if you will. They're dragons that we've never seen come to fruition. It's the Bigfoot, if you will, the Loch Ness, the Nelly of video games. But it is an IP that existed. It was supposed to release for the N64 100,000 years ago, and could be one of those games that, by a smaller team with a new direction, a third-person, story-driven, spy fiction kind of a thing. That's my hope, because I don't play RTS games, but I know a lot of people in the chat here do. StarCraft would be huge. What are your thoughts on this new team? Because I think this is going to become a trend with the way Microsoft is looking to lower costs on AAA development and get more games into a service for new customers.
Yeah, so I love this topic. Okay. I think first off, StarCraft and Warcraft and all of that will be bigger teams doing those. So for the record, like this new team, I don't think is going to do that style. Maybe like a spin-off, like you said, maybe something like a Star Wars, StarCraft Ghost in some sort of way will be available from this team, or spin-off, like smaller spin-offs. I'm thinking so Warcraft, like a small Warcraft spin-off where it's an action adventure instead of all that. An MMO or an RTS. I see that coming from this team, which makes me super excited, and I'll talk more on it. But the StarCraft stuff wouldn't even work on a handheld to me, in my opinion. But they would have to kind of dumb it down like they did Diablo, and I think that's always a bad decision. But who knows? They could make it work. They've made RTSs work, like Age of Empires. But competitively, I don't think people are going to be walking around with a handheld playing StarCraft competitively. I don't see that. But in any case, as I said before, they closed Tango. Everybody's like, oh my God, they're not focusing on these big areas anymore. Asia, oh my God, Xbox is dead. Like I said, Overwatch, Warcraft, even Heroes of the Storm, all these games are gigantic and were gigantic in these regions. they all spell like success for these regions once the new big things come out.
100%.
I can't wait for a new StarCraft, and I hope that this team being available, like made and created, takes focus a little bit on this off the big stuff like StarCraft, so the main teams could work on it, because I think that's going to be gigantic. I think it's going to be massive, and it was massive. And there's no sign of it. You know, there's nothing telling us that StarCraft won't move something in the
Dude,
world,
it's
right? Like
would
there's
be
nothing pointing to
ridiculous.
that. It is a very big IP there, so I can't wait.
Yes.
I think that, like I said, the small team will focus on like spin-offs, cute little spin-offs. Maybe we get, like I said, a Warcraft Arthas story again, but you're actually running around as Arthas in a 3D model and going action adventure on it. I don't know, but um, yeah, I want to see Warcraft also. I want to see Warcraft in RTS form. Maybe that's something they can do. Focus on a Warcraft story in RTS form. Um, yeah, dude, I don't know. There's so much potential with this team. I'm so freaking excited. And guys, people that are like, they won't do anything. Eight
Phil Spencer has
Japan,
name dropped StarCraft multiple times, brother.
yeah, Japan, and Korea and all of that. Handhelds are freaking king. So if these
Yes.
things drop, like Boom said, and they have some sort of handheld version, again, don't know how they would do that with these crazy competitive games, but if they do that, things are going to get nuts there, and they'll start looking at an Xbox handheld and being like, well, it's not on Switch.
Yep.
I love StarCraft. I love Overwatch. I love Warcraft. I love World of Warcraft. It's all available on this handheld thing. They're going to start picking up the handheld thing. And that moves units and that gets people in, and especially Game Pass. That gets Game Pass in to that market very heavily. So,
Yeah, absolutely it
um,
does. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm making sense. I'm babbling around because I'm
No,
very,
no. Listen, you're a
very
fan, brother.
excited
That
about this
you're
because
that. There you go, fandom, brother.
yeah,
It's the best part of being what we do.
yeah, I love those IP, man, and this spin-off, well, that's what it spells like to me. This spin-off studio for these IPs just sounds so intriguing to me. Hopefully they're not like mobile games, like Warcraft Rumble and and Schnick like that. And they actually give us something double A and solid for console. But yeah, I can't wait, man.
Yeah, listen, there's a lot of potential here. Now, Fuzzy, I saved you specifically for second because you're a technical guy like Keasante. And what's interesting about the supposed next piece of hardware? Now, again, we've heard different things. We know that the hardware is supposed to release in 2026. This newly formed studio, which, by the way, let me read verbatim from the article. And of course, thanks to Jez Corden for putting this article out. It was published on August 2nd, of course, by Jez Corden of Windows Central and the Xbox Two podcast. And the title of the article is Microsoft and Activision have formed a new team within Blizzard to work on smaller game based on existing IP. Employees from King and other parts of Activision have formed a new team within the Blizzard umbrella. Now, again, one of my favorite sections is the what you need to know about the story. And well, I'm going to read that verbatim before we get into the rest of the conversation. It says, over the past few weeks, many King employees have switched their LinkedIn profiles from King to Blizzard. We can reveal that Microsoft and Activision have, in fact, formed a new, smaller team within Blizzard comprised of King and various other employees to work on smaller titles based on existing Blizzard franchises like Overwatch, Warcraft, StarCraft, and beyond. Microsoft is keen to leverage its huge back catalog of franchises it acquired with its Activision Blizzard purchase of previous years. Now, Fuzzy, what's interesting and getting kind of trying to just focus on this supposed handheld. We keep hearing that the next piece of hardware is somehow going to incorporate your Steam library, your Epic Game Store library, as well as Xbox and Xbox Game Pass. What this is ultimately going to do is give the player choice of where they buy their games, where they download their games, and what they ultimately play. Now, I don't know if a Xbox only handheld does banger numbers in Japan, in Korea, in China. I honestly I don't think it would because it's an Xbox. But I think there's something to be said that if the audience there is educated with the fact that these are basic PCs in your hand, very keen to like the ROG allies and everything else that's available out there in the handheld market, where not only are you getting the ability to play your Steam library, play your Epic Game Store library, but get a game like StarCraft in your service. I think that this could be not only big in those regions, a handheld, and again, we don't know, is it one piece of hardware for next gen or is it two? We don't know in 2026. Is it going to be the traditional underneath your box PC that looks like an Xbox and then a handheld? Or is it going to be a handheld that runs as good as a ROG Ally in your hand, but when you dock it, that dock actually has hardware, making it a next gen console? We don't know. Either way, I think that there is something to be said about a agile, smaller team going back and bringing IP like StarCraft. And that again, Phil Spencer has, when he's been interviewed, he's talked about that specific franchise 2 or 3 times. That game is coming back. That game is a money maker. What are your thoughts?
Well, touching on the hardware just real quick, I think the big thing is I'm kind of in the camp of it's going to be a Snapdragon chip or an ARM chip, basically, so that way you get the best of both worlds with battery life and playability and stuff. So if that all winds up being the case, I think their goal would be to have it where this can emulate on the actual hardware the console games. Like, basically keep your Xbox library on this sort of PC handheld or portable PC, somewhat like a Steam Deck or a ROG Ally type of deal, but yet still have access to full-on PC games through either the Epic Store, Microsoft Store, or even Steam. And I think the reason why they do that is it kind of blurs that line, so that way you have the dual entitlement that Xbox, being the only ones that offer that, you have that playability to play your console games and PC games on the same device. And I think if they can manage that, it kind of circumvents that third-party licensing issue that's preventing that currently, where you would have certain third parties have it where if you bought the console version, you also own the PC version within the Xbox ecosystem. But if they make it so it's a PC device that can emulate, being that it's an Xbox, and emulate the Xbox games on that device, installed as opposed to streaming, I think that will give the customer the best of both worlds. Third parties, if they come to the table as far as negotiation, they might get a bigger piece of the pie, and then in turn, more people will be likely to buy, more games within the ecosystem, in turn giving them a larger sum from Xbox in general. Or even if the people don't purchase, like let's say it's a PC version of the game, they choose not to purchase it through Xbox because they have a CD key Steam sale type of thing going on or something, then the third party still gets the money. Xbox still keeps the person in the ecosystem, and we all win kind of deal. But back onto the Blizzard small team setup, like the first thing that came to mind was obviously with StarCraft and StarCraft Ghosts, like something like that, where you're not making the full on game, because I don't think they have the extra people to be able to move to that as far as for the RTS, the primary game that's still popular even in Korea and China today. I think what you wind up having is something that's like a go-between, that one keeps StarCraft in the news for outside of those regions, because it may not be as well known or as popular at the moment in the US or in the UK or places like that. But you make something like StarCraft Ghost, maybe it's a third person small, like 20 to 40 hour game, single player game type of thing, or maybe it has a co-op element to it. And I think that will warm people up for when you do ramp up an actual StarCraft team. Now, somebody in the chat for Pixelated Echoes with me and 3-Bit last night had made mention, I think it was Brett Brigham who might be in the chat tonight.
Yeah, he's
was
there.
like, I think he made mention of like, well, why not just do like the Overwatch, single player DLC or single player storylines? Like they could actually do that for the individual characters. Yeah, they were supposed to have that in Overwatch 2. That was the whole reason why. So supposedly they had to make it a 2, but they've kind of lacked on that or fallen behind on that. But if you're creating a team that's just going to focus on that, you still have your Overwatch 2 team that's making the content and keeping the battle passes and all that stuff going for Overwatch itself. But if you can make the smaller team focus on like a 20 to 40 hour experience as far as the individual character stories, you have unlimited potential that you can have. Hopefully they could spin it up every year or two, another character or another 3 characters, do them in like a 3 sets or something like that, where you still have revenue coming in for Overwatch 2, and you have the revenue for those, either through Game Pass or actually purchasing the game for that particular storyline of their favorite character in the Overwatch universe. So either way you look at it, I think it's a great idea. I hope at some point they look at some of the other older IP outside of Blizzard. I don't know if they would touch, like, let's say True Crime, since that's more of the Activision side of things. But I would really love to have, like, even if it's a small team just doing a 20 to 40 hour game. It doesn't have to be quite like a GTA clone or anything like that, but make it so it's a decent. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, I just wanted to ask you because Riot did this publishing thing, right? They opened publishing arms for spin-offs of their IP, and those those are excellent games, but they haven't sold enough to keep that arm intact. I think they recently just destroyed that initiative.
Yeah.
Do you think that them doing the same kind of thing, like you're talking about, which is expert, like in my ideas, big, like, I mean, it's a good idea, but it's obviously failed for just as big companies, right? Riot is gigantic. Do you think that it could work sheerly just because of Game Pass? Do you think that's like the whole, like, do you think like Game Pass is going to be the deciding factor if that actually works for this company?
I do think it comes into play. Yeah, big time, because it's one of those things where you have additional content. It keeps people subscribed because they're going to want to check out, like, as soon as their favorite character comes out, they're going to want to check out that content. So it may not do as well numbers wise as far as individual units unless you expand it outside of Game Pass. Obviously, it might still, you may still get the sales that you're looking for, but having it where it's like something built into Game Pass. If somebody was coming over to Game Pass for like maybe some of the perks for Overwatch 2 and things like that they do on occasion, that's a way to definitely lock them in. Playing it on your platform, within your ecosystem, looking forward to update stories and things like that, or possibly making it where it also allows for additional perks for that particular character. Hey, you completed the quest on this character's story line. You get an additional skin from that storyline. So things like that, I think, as long as they incentivize the player to try some of those spin-offs, and maybe they get, weapon skins or costumes or skins for their character in general, I think that's a good way to lock them in, and it would make it worth their while because you're basically captivating that audience. Even if they're not spending the additional dollars, they're going to eventually spend the additional dollars on the future season passes and things, because they're going to be tied to the Xbox ecosystem at that point. You could still offer it outside of it, but I think working within the Xbox ecosystem, that's where they can, I hate to use the word exploit it, but that's basically what they can do with those that are subscribed and make it so it's definitely worth, even if somebody's on the fence of playing Overwatch. Like I know the whole Transformers thing, I'm looking forward to giving that a try as well. But that's the type of stuff that if somebody wasn't into that game, they dip their toes in. Now they kind of like it, kind of like the way Diablo was for me. I was like, I've never really bothered with it prior. even before it was in Game Pass, it was just the matter of, oh, it's improved over what I've heard over Diablo 3 and things like that. Some of the stuff was going back to their traditional ways of doing it. All right, I'm on the fence. Let me pick it up. Some of my friends are picking it up. Oh yeah, this game, I'm all in on it now. So things like the expansion and stuff like that, it's not like I even have to think about it. It's like, all right, that's pre-ordered, already getting some of the rewards from that and stuff. So I think it's Game Pass definitely helps something like that. Like even with Riot now, I think with the with Valorant coming to console and the unlocks that they had before, that was mainly towards PC. But
all
if
the
you're
characters are unlocked, which is huge,
Yeah.
dude. That's massive.
that was huge. So they could kind of work some of those things out with some of the Blizzard IP itself. I'm really curious to see if this trend does work out within the Blizzard walls. Go ahead and do it in Activision. Go ahead and do it at Bethesda. Go ahead and do it even within Xbox Studios. So that way we may get a spinoff for Fallout a little bit sooner, possibly, or maybe we get that true crime spinoff a little bit sooner, or even what's the Prototype or something like that even.
Oh man,
So
yeah,
I like this idea.
I think a remake at this point.
Yeah. I like the idea of them having smaller teams that are possibly working with some of the bigger teams or taking spinoffs and experimenting, because that's another thing that Game Pass kind of helps with. They can experiment and not have to like close up shop because this spinoff that they tried, like let's say if Halo, they had a horror version of Halo Against the Flood on like an abandoned ring or something like that. If it doesn't hit, okay, we lesson learned. Maybe we stick to the formula a little bit more. But if it does, or if it attracts a new player base to Halo because of that, I think it's a win-win, and it's worthwhile, experimenting with those things in Game Pass.